Cancer for the month of April 2024. This is more along the lines of advice. This is a new deck for me, so I'm going to probably reference the book a little bit on this one, but some of it is kind of similar from what I had looked at in the book, is very similar to like to the original traditional decks of tarot. However, anyway, it's slightly different. So I just wanted to give you some idea of what we are looking at. So again, the Two of Staves, this is something that you're starting out for as advice. So it does speak to there being a fair amount of energy or things that you're anxious to get started with something. You're anxious to go forward. But for sure, the Two of Staves is in that it's like a divided energy. So it's like you're caught between the two. So the way that the card references it is basically that it's a necessary separation. Whatever it is that's divided between you and others, you and your money, or anyway, whatever it is, there is a necessary separation. And you just have to be patient before you're able to see something through to its completion. So it's kind of a period where you could be experiencing some frustration because you are having to wait, but it definitely speaks to just kind of wait it out, basically, is what it, be patient, be patient. And I also wanted to add the card also, I'll just throw that in there. The card also has one other little tidbit of information around you kind of being more stoic and watch how others act around you. For whoever that resonates for, there's something to that. We also have the Three of Staves. So again, this is also that period where usually it's kind of stepping back from something, which is what I would say the two is there as well. But it's talking about a successful conclusion to a project. So it's almost like you've reached some sense of conclusive activity around something that, that you had to finish. So mentally, maybe you were going through something, but either way, there was something that you had to finish and it's kind of reached that conclusive end, right? So this card speaks to stepping back and trying to get yourself back into, back out there again. So it's almost like whatever has pulled you away from events or people or life, it was a necessary period of separation. And that follows with the suit of what was also happening with the Two of Staves. It was like you were isolated in some way and you had to really just watch others and their behaviors. And then it moved into the Three of Staves, where there was, again, you were in a period of withdrawal, you were in a period of inactivity. So this is because you were actually getting divine downloads here from your personal family, like your wealth of the ancestors. You might have been tapping into Akashic record information or things along that line. But either way, it's like a passing of the torch has been left with you. So there's something here that speaks to, building up your power, and those necessary divisions between you and the rest of the world were extremely important for this cycle. You are now at, and these seem to go in sequence. So it 100% resonates to me that, you've undergone some kind of significant change. There's also the Ace of Sacred Circles. It's the sacred circle seems to be a place where it's, fertile ground is how the card depicts it. The sacred circle is, kind of reuniting with earth and being more grounded and having a sense of the basic necessities and the things that are around you. There's more roots. There's more of a sense of self. Like the backbone or the structure to who you are is now starting to come forward. So it's not an angry place, it's a grounded place. It's a place where you actually have both feet planted, firmly, because you have a better sense of what you're dealing with now. You can see the world for the way that it is. And a lot of times the world is a place of pain, and it's how do we, circumvent that pain without taking it on as sensitives ourselves. So the thing is sometimes the people that we surround ourselves with, we then start to take on their identity and overemphasize our own pains when in actual fact we may have had a fairly good grounding of where we were, but somehow we get led astray depending on, the crowd that we're surrounded by. So it's just something to be aware of, because you are now in a place of balance. And I think continuing on with that balance is energy that will help to harness you to, levels of teaching, or levels of expression that, are more fully developed and empowering. So there's something there about, you becoming almost, like, there's a sense of leadership here, I feel. With the Four of Staves, again, this is still a lot of activity, a lot of movement that's starting to happen here. This is still around the home. This is still around your personal environment, and you having, more structure, more grounded energy, more bonds with family or closer relationships. It feels like things are starting to turn around here. You now have a sense of yourself and your place in society. And that also means coming with an awareness that there's a lot of pain out there, and there's a lot of, things in flux. There's a lot of things that we have to keep a boundary around. And that's what this card is as well. It's keeping a boundary around the things that might impact the ego, instead of actually, because the ego is the thing that has the triggers, but there is a sense of consciousness, which is not the ego. That is the true spirit. That is the true strength. That is where we get our divine, you know, symbology and understanding from. So when you follow that intuitive guide, that is what we bring to the physical world, is that sense of grounding. So because the physical world impacts us, when you're around, and we feel and see and understand our world through all of the senses. So because of all of those senses, we are taking on whatever, like when a plant is hurt, I'm going to use this as an example. When a plant is hurt, and this goes for the forest, as well. This is, all plants have a defense mechanism. So we always think that they're very stoic, but in actual fact, there is, when there is ants or bugs or anything that's trying to destroy that part of the ecology, it actually has a certain kind of poison a lot of times that plants will release, or there's a certain kind, and that actually, those secretions actually help to deter predators. So, there's, and again, even in the forest, the larger trees feed the smaller trees. It's all carbon based, it's all below the surface. So there's something to, keeping your place, keeping your grounded nature protected, and not allowing your energy to be, is the word placated, I think, somehow undermined, from other surrounding energies. It's a card of protection to a certain degree. Like I said, Four of Staves comes off as, but being very, very comfortable in your family surrounding, or very comfortable in your partnerships and your connections. That's going forward. So there's something about that opening up here. But again, it's also having boundaries out there in the world. It's because you have a good grounding, you have a good foundation. And that's why you can be successful, because you have a good foundation. You know who you are. And now it's just a matter of, not being affected by the outside world in the way that they want to involve us. So, Four of Sacred Circles. Again, this is the Sacred Circles cards they're always very positive, I find, for the most part here. Give me 1 second here on this one, because I don't know all of them, but I do know with the fours, it's always about sort of, again, foundational energy. And yes, it is. Four of Sacred Circles still speaks to the home environment, and that is the basis for all your life experiences. It's kind of, exploration through any pains that you go through in your life. It's having that, safe place for you to kind of come back and create harmony in yourself again, and then go back out into the world. So it's something here about following through and preparing, and you're going back and forth in this sort of energy of regrounding yourself. So it's beginning something again, but it's also about, remembering who you are and your foundation, and who you are at the core. So there's something to the Four of Sacred Circles as being a home base for you. And the last card out as advice is the Two of Sacred Circles. So again, it's the same sort of idea. The two is still a balanced card, and it's almost like you are drawing on, the spiritual and the physical. So you are trying to balance between those two worlds, those hemispheres of the brain, the right and the left thinking. So the right side being the creative, the left side being more rooted in, the practical world of, how do I say? Sort of the practical things that you have to do to get things done. It's more about, just keeping things on the basis of, why can't I think of the word? Right. But keeping it, probably because I'm more right brain oriented. But anyway, but keeping things, one step in front of the other, doing the necessary steps to get to the next step, to the next step. That's kind of where you're at, is you're finding the balance between that spiritual elements of yourself as well as the practical worlds. So this is what you've been trying to balance, and that is the advice, is to maintain that balance and realize that, whatever cast a shadow kind of over your future and what you thought, was taken away from you, understand that that shows that it can be achieved, because now you are a fully empowered human being, is what the card speaks to. So it is where you are now feeling much more whole and centered, and you can go forward. And despite any of the impacts of life's letdowns, which are going to be constant because that's how life is, when you can depersonalize that from the ego, you get back up and you just keep going. Because it's anytime we identify with something that we're doing, we try to personalize it and say, well, my identity is this job, or my identity is this thing. But in actual fact, that's really just an ego aspect of ourselves. It's not to say that it's not a necessary part of life. In some ways, maybe the ego does have its place, but for the most part, being too drawn on the ego, or too hypersensitive to with the sensitivities of spirit, again, one pulls the other and balances it out. It's the yin and the yang. If you're too far into the spiritual, then you also lack that mindset to implement things into the practical world. We need both. That's how we sort of identify our sense of consciousness. That's how we identify who we are, is to have that, and to have that growth, is to have that spirituality to allow us to expand and grow. And then the physicality is there to help us to put something in place step by step by step, to help us to physically see that there has been growth. Because sometimes we don't identify growth if it's all just up in the head. There's no real, there's nothing specific that we can put our hands on that can evidence of what we've just experienced. So the physicality helps us to identify self, the world, through all of the senses. And again, that same sort of idea that we have something, each of us has something to contribute to the world. And I listened to another reader actually, and she's pretty amazing. I like a lot of what she says. And she said something about save the children. And I kind of think that's really what we are here for. We are here to save one another. We are here to not take over someone else's life and do all of the work for them, but we certainly are there to provide tools, provide an ear, provide insight. Whatever your gift is, that's what you're there to do. And that little step, you don't know how that's going to expand and open up into the world, but that little forward momentum helps keep everything going in an empowering way. And when we are empowered as people, we do better. And our society doesn't control us. We then have a voice to mold society in the way that we choose to, that we want to see as a positive outcome, or something that would help to, make the world a better place. So either way, that is my spiel. Anyway, so that was the Ancestral Path Tarot deck. Love it. And I really love the images. Big cards, a little hard for my hands. They're a little small. Right? But anyway, keep moving forward. Never give up. And that's what I've got for you. Happy Easter.